Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and some very cool, surprising Nintendo Switch 2 news just dropped. We have some unexpected but great sales going on. We have a variety of different updates regarding how the Nintendo Switch 2 works, and we have some new discoveries in Mario Kart World that have me very excited. So there's a great deal to get into today. But before going forward, let me take this moment to point out, I am aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the time the Switch 2 launches on June 5th. So if you find yourself enjoying my content, your subscription would be appreciated. So let's start things off by discussing something that is time sensitive. Today, on the Nintendo.com store page, the Nintendo Gamecube Controller was opened up for purchase. So if you are a Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack member, you are allowed to order one of these controllers, and because it is being limited to expansion pack members, they're not going away super quickly, so you may still have a chance to pick one up. I will have the store page linked in the description below. If I click here, as you see, it says we have a lot of visitors right now, but it looks like there's still some hope, so if you see this, give it a whirl, maybe there's still some available. We have something else to discuss here that is time sensitive though. So we've been talking about a variety of different Nintendo Switch 2 editions, not just first party but also third party, and we've seen some third party Switch 2 editions where there's a very cheap upgrade option. But there's one game in particular that I myself and others have been complaining about, and that is Hogwarts Legacy. Because they've gone ahead and made a great version for Nintendo Switch 2, but if you have the Switch 1 version, there was no way shown to get an upgrade on Switch 2, and technically there is no Switch 2 edition for Hogwarts Legacy. It's just a new version of Hogwarts Legacy made for the Nintendo Switch 2. However, we've gotten news that basically something like this has happened. They are offering an upgrade path here. So for $10 USD, if you already have the Switch 1 version, you can purchase the Switch 2 version of Hogwarts Legacy. I think that is fantastic news because beforehand we thought we'd have to pay a lot more. But there's more to this because, guess what? Hogwarts Legacy on the Nintendo Switch 1 is currently on sale. At least here in the United States, it's 70% off. But as you see here, you have until May 19th, 2025, so yes, this year, and just a few short days, less than a week, by 2:59 AM EDT. So if you don't have Hogwarts Legacy yet and you want to take advantage of this deal where you can get the Switch 1 version for less than 20 bucks and then be able to upgrade to the Switch 2 version for just 10 bucks, this is your opportunity to do so. So I'm very happy that they are offering an upgrade path here. It's something I wasn't sure they were going to do, but they're doing it, and right now you can get Hogwarts Legacy for pretty cheap. Recently, during the Virtua Fighter Direct, it was announced that Virtua Fighter R.E.V.O is coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch 2, and they will all have cross-play. So this is actually pretty big news because it's a pretty significant game that's coming to Nintendo Switch 2 seemingly around the same time as Nintendo's competitors, and it also seems like it's being treated to be on par. So that is a big deal when you really think about it. This idea of major third-party games coming out on Switch 2 day and date with the other consoles. For this next topic here, it's actually me going back to something we talked about a few days ago. So there was this data breach at Arc System Works, and we learned about some interesting things, including that they are working on an exclusive Switch 2 title that is supposed to come out this holiday, which is very exciting. But there were other details that came from that, including that apparently there are only 3 types of versions of Nintendo Switch 2 games: digital-only games, game keycard games, and 64GB cartridge games. And something that's been brought to my attention here is that the reason why there may only be 64GB cartridge games as opposed to smaller sizes is because these cartridges are faster than Switch 1 cartridges. There are rumors for quite a long while that Switch 2 would be using 3D NAND cartridges, and this recent data breach seems to be supporting that idea. Of course, Nintendo themselves has already told us that these cartridges are faster, games on Switch 2 do load faster, and so as a result, because now Nintendo is using 3D NAND for their cartridges, the smallest storage space available is the 64GB cartridge. which is still fairly expensive and may explain why a lot of developers are opting for game key cards instead. And it doesn't look like going back to an older, cheaper storage is even an option. Across the board, Nintendo is going with faster and more modern technology here. They're using ultra-fast internal storage, they're using microSD Express as opposed to microSDs. So this may just be an issue of, hey, this is new technology and it does cost more. On the note of microSD Express though, Nintendo has shown new footage of how you can put these SD Express cards into your Nintendo Switch 2. You take the card, you flip back the kickstand, and there it is, you just plop it in. It's nothing too crazy, but it's nice to see some new footage and angles of Nintendo Switch 2. Something else that Nintendo has recently revealed about the Switch 2 is how battery charging works. There's actually an option to change how the battery charges. As it reads here on Go Nintendo, if you turn this option on, your battery's charging will slow down as it nears 90%. This is for those who want to ensure their Switch 2 has a strong battery for years to come, but it's not necessary to use. If you'd rather just charge fully to 100% every time, simply leave the option off. So Nintendo is showing off that there is now an option to turn off charging once you reach 90%, which apparently is good for long-term battery life. And so maybe you're just hanging around the house, you don't plan on using your Switch 2 for extended periods of time. In portable mode, you would want this option to be on, but let's say you're going out on a trip, maybe then you turn it off to maximize the amount of battery you have for longer stints. More options is in general a good thing. Now, something else that's being discussed is that according to this person from this Reddit thread here that was at a Switch 2 Experience event, they created a mock-up of something they saw when there's a Switch 2 error code. If there's a Switch 2 error code, not only will they show the error code and say, hey, you're unable to connect or what have you, there'll be more info here, they are now including a QR code so you can quickly scan, further find out what's going on and what you can do to fix the situation. So it appears to be another nice little quality of life feature. I don't know why someone would randomly lie about this, so I assume this is probably true. This is someone who honestly probably was at a Switch 2 Experience event and saw the error pop up, and they're simply showing us a mock-up of how it would look. The actual version apparently would have rounder edges and such. There are some minor differences, but this is basically how it would appear. In other more positive news, Randy Pitchford, the president of Gearbox, the developers of Borderlands 4, said some very positive things about the Nintendo Switch 2 during the creator's voice that Nintendo put out for Borderlands 4. Switch 2 has been a joy to work with. It is very powerful. It is an incredible machine in a very tight form factor, and we love being on the bleeding edge with our graphics, and the Switch 2 makes all that possible. Randy also talks about how they are making Borderlands 4 for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's not just a simple port. This is something that they are developing for Nintendo Switch 2, and they are very eager and excited about the console. They are saying just amazing, exciting things. And this is just another example of another developer that is very positive about what the Switch 2 can do. This isn't the first time we're hearing about a developer talk about how powerful the Switch 2 is. Now, obviously, Randy Pitchford is saying this in the context of the Switch 2 a hybrid console. Obviously, the Switch 2 is not as powerful as a dedicated home console like a PlayStation 5 Pro or even a base PlayStation 5. But for a hybrid console and how it's able to run all these more modern games so well is exciting to a lot of developers. Some might argue that all these different creators' voices are a bit of fluff, but I think it's actually bigger than that. The fact that we have all these different developers that continue to say so many great things about the Switch 2 and how it can run their pretty modern, impressive games, it says a lot. The Switch 2 has built on the Switch 1's form factor. It's improved in docked mode, portable mode, and tabletop mode. The Switch 2 can run impressive games far better than before, and when you also consider the mouse controls, that offers a lot more options for different types of games, especially a lot of games that thrive on PC. The Switch 2 has potential to expand upon what the Switch 1 did, and perhaps become even more successful. Will it actually? Obviously that's a tall task, but it has that potential. And so it's exciting to see all of these different developers say great things about this system. On the note of mouse controls, Nintendo put out some more footage of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, showcasing how mouse controls work. Now, there's nothing entirely new here because we already understood this information, we already seen this footage from the Nintendo Treehouse, but the fact that they are taking the time to really showcase it, zoom in here, show how the mouse controls work with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, how seamless the transition is, and just the fact that Nintendo's talking about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, I think is a good thing. And I've been speaking about this for a while, but I do believe once we get the next big Nintendo Direct, which I assume will be in late June, a few weeks removed from the launch of Switch 2, then we'll see Nintendo start to really pick up the marketing for Metroid Prime 4 as we get closer to when it will actually be coming out, which I've been theorizing will be this September, but we shall see. But now let's move on to the Mario Kart World news. So yesterday I put out a video talking about how I found something very cool about free roam mode in Mario Kart World, and there's a lot of different layers and angles to it, so if you're interested in that, check out the video. But basically, yeah, there's a lot more we're going to be able to do with missions mode, and the tracks have even more options that people are considering, not just one or two, but perhaps even more. So check that video out, it'll be in the iCard. But there were some things I pointed out, including binoculars that we've seen throughout the map of Mario Kart World, and I speculated that maybe, like in the different 3D Mario games where you can use them to look around the environment, and Dean9472 in the comments actually provided proof of this, which I was asking for. Thank you for providing proof of this. And this footage actually shows more than that, but yes, you can get into binoculars that are scattered all throughout the open world of Mario Kart, and you jump into them and you can look around the environment from high up and scan around for varying points of interest so you can figure out where you may want to go next or look for different clues and secrets throughout the environment. But this footage also shows off some other cool things. So there's also a segment where we see they are running around the open world but in an area that's less explored. And you can actually jump in to the warp pipes and it transports you to elsewhere. So we now also have confirmation not just binoculars are accessible, but these warp pipes that we see all throughout the environment, they're not just there for show either. They are actually portals to other parts of the map. And so I think these are cool things to consider because it shows that the map of Mario Kart World isn't just a static environment with some things to collect. There are things that you can indeed interact with throughout this world, and perhaps there are more. Now something else I'll point out, we do appear to see what happens when you reach the border of the map. Lakitu just pulls you back. Although in this version, they were waiting for a match, so it might work differently during typical, normal free roam mode. It's still up for debate. And with that all said, that is a wrap for this deluge of surprising and cool Nintendo Switch 2 news for today. I wonder what will happen tomorrow. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart, thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.